thought and hoped that that's why you were paying these experts to do it.
The average 30-day stay at a California rehab costs families $40,000. It's expensive and often highly risky.
We've learned that hundreds of patients are dying in Detox. KPIX 5's Susie Steimle shows us the hidden risks of rehab in tonight's original report.
Stephen Varney is a former Air Force pilot who fought in Vietnam. He says he became an alcoholic after the war.
A few years after I was back at work, then that's when it really started to become a problem.
He's been trying to quiet his nightmares with whiskey for decades and has repeatedly turned to Mountain Vista Farm for rehab more times than his son Colin can remember.
I've lost count.
Colin worries the rehab might be taking advantage of his father's mental state. Now into his 70s, after decades of drinking, Stephen has dementia. Stephen shows up at Mountain Vista without even telling his family members, and each visit can cost as much as $35,000, slowly but surely draining his bank account. Even worse, Colin says his father was admitted without his blood pressure medication, something the family didn't find out about for weeks.
His counselor didn't understand, the medications that I was explaining that he needs to be taking.
We picked a place.
The Russells noticed the same thing when they paid $40,000 to check in their 19-year-old son, Teddy Russell, to Mountain Vista last summer.
During the intake, they were having a problem doing the blood pressure cuff, they didn't know how to do it. We're kind of fumbling, and I said, "Are you an RN?" And she said, "No, I'm not. I don't have any medical training at all."
Mountain Vista Farm is a state-licensed residential detox facility, which in California is not required to have a doctor on site. Anne believes the lack of medical support drastically changed the course of her family's life.
We trusted them to help him, and our son trusted us, and it was just a nightmare.
The state investigative report shows Teddy arrived at Mountain Vista Farm at 3:15 p.m. He told the counselors he had taken Xanax and oxycodone earlier that day, but they didn't run a required tox screen. Instead, at 4:45 p.m., they allowed Teddy to go to his room. Detox centers must check on patients every 30 minutes for the critical first 72 hours, but that didn't happen either. At 10:15, he was found unresponsive. 7 hours after being dropped off at Mountain Vista Farm, Teddy Russell was dead.
The police came to the door.
At 3 o'clock in the morning.
And I knew they wanted to come.
And then they said, "Your son's at the morgue." And I was just like, what? How can that be?
The state has the ability to revoke the license of any rehab in which it finds a Class A deficiency on site. And Teddy's death resulted in 2 of those. But the state didn't shut this place down. In fact, we found the state rarely does shut any rehab down. So the penalty Mountain Vista faced for Teddy's death was a $700 fine.
Public records show Teddy's story is not unique. 190 people have died at other rehab facilities in California since 2010. We found dozens of deficiencies, from falsifying records, failing to report deaths, employing unqualified staff, and not monitoring patient vitals like what happened to Teddy. The Russells are now joining a growing list of families filing lawsuits against rehab clinics where their children have died. Gary Gwilliam is their lawyer.
They gave their son to this facility and said, "Here he is, take care of him. He's got a problem. He's sick, he's addicted." And they trusted them with his son's life. And they utterly failed him.
They want transparency and accountability so that families have a fighting chance at finding a facility they can trust.
Who's going to care more about this person than you are? You thought and hoped that that's why you were paying these experts to do it.
No accountability, no responsibility. It's a joke.
One of the most difficult decisions that families have to make is finding a rehab they can trust if they're in this situation. And when researching rehabs, unless they were to make a public records request, the general public would not know if someone had died at a rehab. We wanted to change that. We are making all of our records public. We've created a map that shows you every single death that warranted a state investigation. You can see it for yourself, which facilities have failed to follow protocol. All of it is on KPIX.com.
So much at stake, lives at stake, actually. Transparency is the key.
Yeah, hopefully it will lead to more information so people can make informed decisions.
Should.
It's a really difficult time,
Absolutely.
and they'd like to have more resources.
Good report. All right, Susie, thanks.